On May 12, 2011, a minor league baseball exhibition in Ohio drew hundreds of fans to a family-friendly evening event. The main attraction was an interactive batting cage where volunteers could face a professional-grade pitching machine. Among the participants was 24-year-old college slugger Evan Harlow, known locally for his powerful swing. As he stepped into the cage, the announcer hyped the crowd, encouraging louder cheers. The pitching machine, normally calibrated to safe speed, had been tampered with earlier by a technician testing high-velocity settings. Without warning, the machine fired a blistering fastball nearly twice the intended speed. Evan barely had time to tense his arms before the ball curved sharply, missing the bat entirely. The ball struck his forehead with a thud loud enough for the entire crowd to hear. Evan took one step backward, his bat slipping from his fingers as he wobbled. A thin line of blood trickled down from his hairline as he stared blankly at the crowd. Suddenly, he crumpled onto his side, limbs folding awkwardly beneath him. Fans screamed as staff rushed toward the cage, frantically unlocking the safety latch. Medics reached Evan quickly and began chest compressions as his breathing faded. His pulse weakened dramatically as blood pooled beside his head in a growing stain. Despite continuous CPR, his condition worsened with every passing second. Paramedics attempted defibrillation, but his body barely reacted to the shocks. The crowd grew silent as medics announced he had no detectable cardiac activity. Evan Harlow was pronounced dead at the scene, becoming the first participant in the event's history to die in front of spectators. Incident 2. On June 3, 2018, scorching heat settled over Austin, Texas as thousands gathered for a local Ironman triathlon. Among the elite competitors was 29-year-old endurance athlete Mark Kelton, admired for his discipline and stamina. Though the morning started cool, temperatures climbed rapidly, making hydration crucial. As Mark transitioned from cycling to running, he pushed himself harder than officials advised. His pace remained strong despite the heat, impressing spectators lining the streets. But halfway through the run, witnesses noticed his stride becoming uneven. Mark ignored the warning signs as his vision blurred and the world around him swayed. Suddenly his knees buckled, sending him stumbling into a nearby barricade. Spectators gasped as he tried to stand, only to collapse forward onto the pavement. A medic sprinted toward him, noticing immediately that his skin was dangerously hot to the touch. Mark's breathing was shallow, his lips turning a faint bluish color. Cold packs were applied, but his body showed little response to cooling efforts. His pulse weakened rapidly as internal organs began to struggle under extreme temperature stress. An ambulance arrived, but Mark's heart rhythm deteriorated en route to the medical tent. Multiple attempts to revive him were unsuccessful as his temperature continued rising. Doctors recognized his condition as catastrophic heatstroke leading to organ failure. After 20 minutes of failed resuscitation, he was declared unresponsive. Mark Kelton's death sent shockwaves through the triathlon community and forced new heat safety regulations. Incident 3. At a small county rodeo in Texas, a young amateur rider prepared for his first performance, unaware that the bull beneath him was infamous for sudden, violent outbursts. Spectators cheered loudly, their excitement masking the growing dread the rider felt as the bull shifted its weight with unnatural aggression. The gate burst open, and the bull launched forward with terrifying force, dragging the rider into a chaotic blur of dust and hooves. Within seconds, the rider lost balance and slipped sideways, clinging desperately as the bull twisted its torso unnaturally. The bull's sudden jerk finally flung him into the dirt, his body sliding across the arena floor as dust clouds rose around him. Before anyone could intervene, the bull spun and charged with horrifying speed, targeting the fallen rider. The rider raised his hands, trying to shield his face, but the bull's massive horns struck directly into his chest. The impact lifted him off the ground, his thin body folding unnaturally as he was thrown backwards. The rider crashed into the dirt again, motionless for a moment as the crowd screamed in disbelief. But the bull didn't stop. It stomped forward and struck him again, this time crushing his shoulder. Wranglers rushed in with ropes, but every attempt to distract the enraged animal failed. The bull tossed its head once more, sending the rider rolling violently across the arena. Finally, one wrangler managed to hook a rope around the bull's horns, slowing the beast just long enough for medics to reach the victim. The rider's breathing was shallow, and his chest collapsed unevenly with every attempt to inhale. Spectators watched in stunned silence as paramedics applied pressure to control the rapidly spreading internal damage. Despite their efforts, his injuries were too severe, and his body gradually grew limp under the harsh arena lights. The once cheering arena now echoed with grim whispers as the bull was finally dragged away. What was meant to be a night of excitement ended in a devastating tragedy, reminding everyone of the brutal unpredictability of rodeo animals. Incident 4. During a regional gymnastics meet in the United States, a teenage athlete prepared for her routine on the uneven bars, unaware that one loose clamp would soon end everything. She leaped confidently onto the lower bar, her thin frame swinging upward with practiced elegance and perfect control. As she transitioned toward the upper bar, a faint metallic creak echoed through the gymnasium. She grabbed the upper bar, but the weakened clamp twisted unexpectedly, shifting the bar half an inch out of place. The shift broke her rhythm completely, sending her body swinging sideways instead of upward. Her hands slipped from the bar, and for a split second she hung weightless in the air, realizing she was falling out of control. She crashed back first into the lower bar, her thin body bending at a violent and unnatural angle. The sound of impact echoed sharply, startling the entire audience into silence. Her momentum flipped her over the bar, sending her tumbling toward the mat headfirst. She hit the mat with a sickening thud, her neck and shoulders collapsing into a twisted heap. Coaches sprinted toward her, shouting her name, but she gave no response, only shallow, irregular breaths. Her arms trembled uncontrollably as her nervous system tried to respond to the sudden trauma. Medical staff rushed in with a stabilizing brace, but the damage to her spine was already severe. Teammates watched from the sidelines, some crying, others frozen in disbelief at the brutal fall. Even as she was lifted carefully onto the stretcher, her legs remained completely motionless. The gym became painfully quiet, the earlier cheers replaced by an eerie tension that refused to fade. As paramedics rolled her away, the bent bar still hung crookedly in the background, proof of the fatal malfunction. What was meant to be a graceful performance ended as a shocking tragedy, reminding everyone how one simple failure can turn athletic beauty into irreversible horror. Incident 5. On a warm Friday night in the United States, a high school football game drew a roaring crowd as players lined up under the bright stadium lights. Among them was a determined young linebacker, known for his aggressive tackles and unbreakable confidence. As the whistle blew, he sprinted toward the running back, building a dangerous amount of speed. But the moment he dropped his head for impact, his helmet tilted downward a few inches too far. His crown collided with the opponent's shoulder pad in a violent, bone-compressing impact. The force traveled straight down his spine, crushing the vertebrae in a split second. He fell instantly, his limbs going limp as though someone had unplugged his entire body. Players froze around him, confused at first, thinking he was simply winded from the collision. But his chest wasn't rising, and his fingers remained curled and motionless on the grass. Coaches rushed in, shouting for medical staff as panic rippled through the silent stadium. When they removed his helmet, his head remained limp, showing no control or response. One medic began chest compressions, but his body barely reacted. His spine was no longer sending signals. The crowd watched helplessly, feeling the weight of every second as the boy lay unresponsive on the field. Even as oxygen was administered, his breathing didn't return, and his pulse weakened dangerously. His teammates kneeled nearby, their helmets resting on the ground, praying for any sign of movement. But minutes passed with no improvement, confirming the catastrophic injury to his spine and brainstem. The once exciting game ended in complete silence as emergency crews prepared to remove him from the field. That night, a single mistimed tackle transformed a routine high school game into a heartbreaking tragedy that would haunt everyone who witnessed it.